No, no. Yeah, it's scary.
Camera's right here. Every noise you make, so
I'm
be quiet.
all right. Am I myself? Oh, yeah.
Well, we'll just put it on
These 10 farms,
this.
but they were all 15, 20 pounds. Survive, you know,
What do you mean? I'm here or something. You need paper?
Yeah, I need to get my pants in.
that's exactly the case.
Alright, so we're gonna get started in just a minute. We're gonna wait till everybody gets back in their seats. We're gonna send around the sign-in sheet.
Okay.
This is just so we can keep track of attendance. So we have a basic idea of how many people we have. I guess a couple quick housekeeping items. We will be having a, brief business meeting afterward. Also, that'll be like right after we have like snacks and stuff, so kind of the same way we normally run it with those things we come regularly. So without further ado, I would like to introduce the lady that I've known my entire life. To me, she's Mrs. Kenyon. My dad has known her and her husband for ever. They went to Southport Wright School, I believe, and she was here to speak to us about the Sheffield Creameries. I thought it was kind of fitting since we just did the historical market dedication for our creamery here, although it was not part of Sheffield, it was McDermott, but kind of keeping on the same theme. So, floor is yours.
My name is Margret Kenyon. This is my husband Rick. This is my friend Gary Williams, who belongs to the Hobart Historical with me and helps us with this machinery that I know nothing about. And I'm so grateful because the pictures add so much. Dick and I bought a farm in 1972 in East Meredith near Davenport. And our son is currently in charge, but we like to keep our hands in the stuff that we can still do. I have some connections to Sahara County. The Embar Farms in Fultonham. My maiden name was Barber, and the gentleman, the child in the back in the middle is my grandfather, James Barber, and Embar Farms is now on its 6th and 7th generation of barbers running that vegetable produce farm. And the smaller boy is Emmett Barber, who would have been Roger's father, and he had the farm. No, Joel had it first, then son Emmett. My grandfather James was a teacher at Burnt Hill, which was Glenham number 5's, district number 5 in Glenham. I think Emmett taught school also, and Ford. And then my grandfather moved to Grand Gorge and eventually to Hobart, where that's the farm I grew up on, in Hobart. The Embar Farms had a little history. That property has been a family farm since 1857. Stephen and Emmeline Barber paid $1,500 for 3 parcels of land. They are now members of the 7th generation of Barbers taking part in the operations on the farm. During the American Revolution, that area played a vital role in supplying the Continental Army with wheat, and that valley was protected by 3 stockades, one of which was on that which is now the Barber property. Okay, Gary. I have this book that was my father's, and I just wanted to read this. I like this beginning. The New York City of 1841 sprawled before Mr. Decker like a huge toy village tossed together by a playful giant. It had no plan. More than 300,000 people were huddled on the lower third of Manhattan Island. Narrow streets wound through the maze of low buildings like tangled fishing line. The city lacked a police force, professional firemen, and public schools. It showed black scars left by the Great Fire of 1835, which had made thousands homeless. Water from tainted wells sold for a penny a gallon. Disease flamed through the crowded alleys. 1 out of every 2 children died before reaching 5 years of age. New York City seemed as overgrown and poorly coordinated as a dinosaur, and in nearly as great danger of becoming extinct. But the pioneers who stayed at home were busy. Campaigns for a municipal police force, for paid firemen, and for public schools were underway. Croton Aqueduct, tapping sources of pure water, was inching toward the city. And a New York businessman, Robert Hartley, was saying loudly and firmly that most of the milk sold in the city was unfit to drink. Hartley had even started a drive to coax neighboring farmers to bring fresh, pure milk into New York to compete with city-produced milk. Decker drove slowly along this route to the fashionable Lower East Side. Milk's come, and a servant came out with a stone pitcher, and Decker began ladling several quarts in it. Here, here, the servant said sharply. What are you giving us? This isn't like the regular milk we get. The other man's milk was different. It had a nice bluish white color. Tell you what, man, that milk you've been getting came from cows fed here in the city on brewery mash. This is country milk. My cows feed on grass and such, not brewery mash. Young man, don't tell me your milk is as good as city milk. Just look at that yellow color. It's called cream, man. Cream, indeed, I never heard of such a thing. What's cream? It's used to make butter. The original Dutch settlers in New York City had imported milk cows in the 1600s to provide a supply of fresh milk for nutrition. For years, each family had premises with at least 1 cow to provide fresh milk for the family. New York City grew and became more urbanized. The open land available for pasture and grazing for cows diminished in the cities. Cows and farms were located farther and farther from the city population, making it more difficult to obtain fresh milk each day. Farming was commonplace in Upper Manhattan in the 1800s. Livestock grazed on lawn greens, so fresh milk was close to hand. As the city expanded north, milk production was pushed further uptown. Cows were housed adjacent to breweries and tanneries that spewed fumes and polluted rivers and streams. Increasing farmers and industry became intertwined in ways that threatened public health. This milk became known as swill milk. Country milk was hauled in on trains, but it was not pure either. Refrigeration was not common yet, so milk would sit in open train cars or in vats in grocery stores, where people ladled it into an open bucket and carried it home. The problem with the supply of fresh milk was considered one of the major factors causing a high mortality rate for young children. In 1841, like I said in the story, 1 of every 2 children in New York City died before the age of 5, many from tuberculosis, typhoid, or diarrhea causing bacteria that was in the poor milk. The 1820s and 1830s, the breweries and distilleries in the city were producing excess rye and corn mash byproducts in their brewing and distillery operation. The surplus grain mash, with a higher calorie content than grass, started to be fed to cows in the city to try to increase the supply of fresh milk and help dispose of the surplus grain mash. However, this milk produced from the cows eating this excess rye and corn mash from the distillery were more prone to infection and more susceptible to disease. The swill milk was often whitened with chalk or plaster of Paris. The pure milk movement started in the late 1830s. Robert Hartley was the father of a sickly child who led a crusade in 1838 to encourage drinking fresh milk from the country cows rather than those fed from the distillery mash. It's a picture of delivering ice to an old creamery. You can see the all drawn by horses, trying to keep the product as fresh as possible. Sheffield Farms Creamery had several different names. And first of all, Lewis Halsey was a lawyer who worked in New York City and got interested in the butter making business that Sheffield had in New York City. he left his practice and devoted all his time to the attention of sales of milk and butter in New York City. As business grew, he had to find additional sources of milk, and he started looking for opportunities in upstate New York. This eventually led him to Hobart. Hobart had an excellent water supply, which was a plus. The creamery opened in 1888. At this time, the business was named Jordan and Halsey Creamery. Mr. Halsey was a nephew of William Sheffield. He moved to Hobart and started work at the creamery and stayed there for 25 years. The Hobart Independent newspaper reported on June 2nd, 1887, that it was believed that more milk was being shipped from the Hobart Railroad Station than any other station in New York State. The same claim was made 3 years later in the same newspaper. Okay. This is the Sheffield Creamery. Many builders at it. The top picture, the top is where the Sheffield estate is, and it's still there in Hobart. It was a nursing home for many years, and now I believe it's turned into apartments. But all the middle part of that picture are Sheffield buildings. Sheffield Farms operated in Hobart for 80 years, 1888 to 1868. The new building was constructed, and it took 2 months to set up the equipment and test it. Opened for business in May of 1888, it was located alongside the new railroad tracks in Hobart. For many years during the 1900s, it was a major business in Hobart and the largest employer. When it opened in 1888, it was the first rural creamery built to help supply fresh milk to residents in New York City. Sheffield Farms was responsible for some advancements and achievements through the years, such as the first use of a covered milk wagon to deliver milk in the city in 1880s. The first use of pasteurization process in Bloomville in 1892. A pioneer in tuberculin testing. A pioneer in production of certified milk for infants. A pioneer in the development of byproducts made from surplus milk. First use of stainless steel dairy equipment started in Afton in 1925, and the first use of paper packaging for milk containers in 1930. During the 1920s, Sheffield had more than 90 creameries in upstate New York and neighboring parts of Vermont and Pennsylvania. I do have a list of them, if anyone's interested, all contributing to the daily milk supply to New York City. The traditional system of home delivery of milk by employees was horse-drawn milk wagons. It was a significant source of revenue. Trucks replaced the wagons in 1938. In 1925, Sheffield Farms Creamery had annual sales of $50 million. When that's adjusted for inflation, this would be equivalent to more than $800 million today. What's next? This is the Bloomville Creamery. It's the closest one to Dick and I. It's still there. I think a man who does sculpting and artwork actually has it now. But there's old cars all lined up there. Who probably bought their, cans of milk in the back of their cars. And then what's the next one? That's ice harvest too. Once again. Okay. I have some pictures of the different creameries. Oh, I can do my best. Okay. Yeah. This is Manico, right? Lenham. Okay. This is Sheffield Farms in South Courtright. Right now, it's all gone, but now there's houses there. It's where the Hidden Inn restaurant is in South Courtright. It's on that property now. It was quite big. This is a board plant in Walton.
The watershed ag programs offices occupy that building, and a lot of cooperative extension offices.
Oh, on West Street. Okay.
Yeah,
side is now. This is where Rick's Tire is. This is Rain Gorge. Seal test was, I'll get to that, Sheffield had into Borden's and seal test and crab. This is, I believe this is in Delhi, Voigt's, V-O-G-T, I believe, and it's where the Price Chopper and Walgreens are. All completely different now. This is Sheffield and Hobart with some of the trucks lined up. Picture of just the cans on the rack. Trucks come in and empty the cans.
They have the names on the cans?
And numbers.
Circle around.
Numbers.
Numbers? Did you get the same cans back?
So,
Yes, we were number 33.
Oh, okay.
layering ice inside the boxes of bottled milk. Some pictures inside the creamery. These are first aid classes that the employees had to take. All the different equipment, sign says precious as time, Sheffield Milk. All the different things to be monitored that the employees have to take care of. That's how we were going. I remember as a child being on those rollers, and just playing on those. One time they had 100 employees, and the population of Hobart at that time was 600, and 100 people working the creamery. This is the South Lagoa Sheffield Creamery Band. All the names of the people that are there, and Karen Cuccinella at the Stanford Library gave me a little bit of information about all of them. She supplied this picture. Taggart, Mondor, Stone, Barthelmess, Cook, Diegman, Moore, Darling, Ellsworth, Wynn, and Smith.
Vermont, DT. Does that mean Vermont?
I don't know. I wonder where they went to play. Okay, I want to talk about the milk strikes, and some of this information I got from a book by Ed Nichols, who lives in South Cartwright. During the Depression in the 30s, people couldn't afford a lot of things, and milk was down to 90 cents a hundredweight, and farmers couldn't make a go of it. The state was setting the prices, and it was costing more to produce than they'd get in return. The labor unions pushed to get the dairy farmers to join their ranks in the 1930s, but the labor union would be on the opposite side of the issue as a farmer. The farmer is the boss, and not the wage earner. This caused a dispute. There are many things that influence the price of milk. The government was one of the bigger factors. They put together the milk marketing order. The farmers actually had little to say in developing their own marketing system or setting prices. Politically, there was little incentive to keep the price of milk high for the farmer. There were far fewer farmers voting than there were non-farmers going to the voting booth. For the politician, keeping the cost of all farm commodities low to the consumer made good political sense. The only downside was if the prices were so low that many farmers went out of business, a shortage would occur. Many of the farmers couldn't seem to agree, and they were often heated discussions. Creameries were not directly involved. They wanted the milk. few farmers joined the strike movement, not a lot locally. They would gather on the public road in front of the creamery. They would physically stop the trucks coming into the creamery with the milk, get up on the truck and dump all the milk in the road. The strikers had also on occasion stopped a tanker hauling milk to the city and opened the valves, letting the milk out. Sometimes the farmers got a forewarning if something might happen. They would ride along with the milk truck to the creamery with their weapon of choice. When you were outnumbered by half a dozen farmers, they had to reconsider what they might do. These first pictures show some of them. Like I said, Bob Wire is the one that took all these pictures from Delaware County. But you'll see in some of the pictures, it's nothing local. When you see a traffic light that has 3 different sides and everything, it's worth city. There's probably bullet holes on the top of that, on that picture. In the windshield. Okay. Okay. And they tried to, they have logs they're putting across the road, and there's also a strip in front of the truck that has nails in it. Waving them down, stopping them along the road. Putting barricades up to the road. When I look at these pictures, the first thing I said to some of the older farmers I was talking to, why isn't anybody stopping this? I don't know the answer. That says, truck said Eaton, New York, so I don't know where that was. Mr. Nichols said if a lot of farmers went together, you know, they would be safer and they could get the milk through. There's the traffic light that we don't have anything around that here like that, so I don't know where this was taken. And you see all the trucks lined up, and they were told, Charlie Thornton, is that the name that, who used to write for the Mirror Reporter, said that he was told, he was in farming at one point, apparently, was told to keep the truck right up to the valve, close to the valve of the truck in front of you, so nobody could get at that valve, so they traveled pretty close to each other. From the Delaware County Historical have these of Bob Wire. State police are involved in some locations. Okay. I don't know why that's on there sometimes. This is the Hobart plant right next to the railroad. A creamery would collect fluid milk from various farmers, cool it to a certain temperature, and then ship it to New York City. Many creameries were equipped with separators which processed the milk to separate the cream from the whole milk. In 1878, glass milk bottles were introduced. Some of the creameries were equipped to bottle the milk. A small number of creameries were equipped to process the milk into butter or cheese. The creamery in Hobart primarily made butter in the 1900s. 1,200 pounds of butter were made each week. The Hobart Creamery was recognized several times for making very good butter. In 1902 at a convention at the National Creamery Buttermakers Association, it was ranked #1 among all the New York exhibitors and #5 in the nation. A year later, they were again the national champion. In 1914, the creamery was making an average of more than 10,000 pounds of butter per day at the Hobart Creamery. The creamery received between 1,000 and 1,500 cans of milk per day. Early in the 1900s, there was a merger of 4 milk companies in an effort to consolidate business operations and reduce certain costs so as to be more competitive. These were Sheffield Farms, led by L.B. Halsey. He had several creameries in Delaware County and retail stores in New York City. Another merged was Sheffield Farms, led by Mr. Tuthill. He also had creameries in Delaware County and retail stores in New York City. The third member was Slauson Brothers. They had a dairy condensary business in Hobart, where they took the 60% of the water out of the milk to make condensed milk. And finally, T.W. Decker and Sons had a creamery in Rain Gorge and stores in New York City. With increased mechanism and steady improvement in the production of milk, a surplus developed in the 1900s to 1910s. Research and development were increased to find ways to use the surplus milk to make other products. In 1923, the investment banking firm of Goldman Sachs in New York City decided to start a new business venture with the goal of establishing a national dairy business to provide customers with fresh milk, ice cream, and related products. The new business was named the National Dairy Products Corporation, and they acquired the Sheffield Farms Company and its subsidiaries headquartered in New York City. This company was the predecessor to Kraft Foods in 1930. And in 1935, they started the Seal Test brand. Hobart Creamery operations were part of the Seal Test division from 56 to 68. The retail distribution of milk changed dramatically after World War II. In the 30s and 40s, more than 75% of households in New York City received their dairy milk by the home delivery system. By 1950, there was only 25%, as more people were buying their milk from a grocery store. This fundamental change in the distribution plus bulk milk tank trucks led to major changes in the operation of local creameries. In the 1940s, National Dairy Products started consolidating and selling off various assets in its dairy business, including the Sheffield Farms business. I had Elsie the cow up there because I want to tell you this. There's a lady in Hobart that her name is Ruth Maney, and she and her sister were part of the publicity campaign for Elsie the cow. Ruth is no longer, she wrote down her memories because she's no longer able to convey them, but her daughter found this written that she wrote. My sister Ann and I were working in a hayfield near our home at Rosemary Farm. It was the summer of 1947, between Ann's junior and senior year at art school in Buffalo, and my sophomore and junior year studying music at Potsdam. Mother called to us, a phone call from Ann and Ruth Rose. It was from a representative of the Borden Company, who said the company would like 2 girls to travel for a month that summer with their dairy advertising cow, a cow named Elsie. She would appear in her boudoir at Macy's department store in New York City for 2 weeks, then on to the Canadian National Exhibition in Toronto for another 2 weeks. These in August. He asked if we would be interested in working as herd girls for Elsie. I don't recall our reaction, but definitely remember Mother's as a definite no. That New York City was no place for 2 teenage girls. She knew the ways of the city, as she had worked as a stenographer for Armour & Company before her marriage. The reply was that we'd be well chaperoned, that they wanted us to comply as we had come highly recommended. With this promise, both our parents concurred and plans were made for the adventure. But why us? We had become acquainted with Mr. Harold Willman, who judged our cattle at County Fair. Changing positions, he became a professor in the Animal Husbandry Department at Cornell. When Borden needed 2 girls to work for them, Mr. Willman suggested Ann and me. First, we had a live visit to be introduced to Elsie herself, who lived with her husband Elmer at East Skodak, New York. The next step to New York City. They purchased patterns and fabrics for our working outfits. These to be sewn at home, and of course our chaperone, who made sure we saw the sights of the two cities. Their outfits matched the bedding on the bed. Elsie standing on a bed, and Elsie's boudoir, a huge traveling bedroom, consisted of a 4-poster bed complete with ruffles matching our skirts, 2 upholstered chairs for her comfort. One was a barrel and one a wheelbarrow. Pictures of her relatives graced the walls. She had a located in the toy department on the 5th floor of Macy's department store, then the largest in the world. We exercised her every day by walking through the toys. Our job was to milk, feed, and groom her, making sure she was comfortable and happy. And public relations. Yes, she had 18,000 visitors in New York and 500,000 in Toronto. Many people had never seen a cow, so there were many questions. Is Elsie real? She's a fake. The real Elsie's dead. She gives the most milk of any cow, doesn't she? After 2 weeks in New York, appearing on 2 radio shows, one with Elsie in tow, and a plethora of sightseeing, we traveled by Pullman to the Canadian National Exhibition in Toronto for another 2 weeks. Here we were set up with playpen, complete with baby and our own dressing room. Onlookers were lined up 3 deep on ramps. Charitable contributions were received from the hospital for sick children and Christmas cheer for British children. As in New York, we were treated royally. A terrifying experience for me one morning was when it was my turn to go to the grounds early for her. I thought some outside exercise might be in order, and so did she. She jerked free of the rope, kicking up her heels in delight to be left alone. The huge fairground was her arena, and she made the most of it. She ran. I panicked, thinking I was responsible for the most famous cow in the country. She was insured for $25,000, a lot then. Honestly, we connected somehow, and back she went to bed and breakfast. I wonder if I ever told the company about that escapade. Perhaps not, as they might have withheld my $50 a week salary. Elsie did have a baby while she was on tour. I think they named him Elmer. Thank you.
Did anyone have any questions or comments, stories?
Hey, when did the name Sheffield fade away? Because I have a recollection when, up until I was 8, I was living in the Boston area, and after that in New York City. And I remember we didn't drink milk, we drank Sheffield. Did they have outlets in Boston?
I don't know.
Great stories.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
There are refreshments up here, and then in